Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for watching. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I made this Super Mario Odyssey themed cake. I do give you some warning that there are parts of the video that are blurry. I totally goofed up. I thought it was in focus, but obviously it was not. It's definitely not for the whole video, but there are some parts that are just annoying. But hopefully you can make it through it. You can still definitely see what I'm doing, so please bear with me. I'm starting out with one 8-inch cake that I've cut in half, and I'm going to be filling that with some Swiss meringue buttercream using my small offset spatula. I have a template here of Mario's head that I used. It got a little blurry when I blew it up, but it was totally fine for my usage, so I will link that down below. I'm taking a sharp knife and just tracing around there. I didn't have quite enough room at the top of the cake for his hat, so I just added a little extra cake and then trimmed that down. Once the shape was good, I added a thin layer of my buttercream all around my cake to act as a crumb coat, and then that went in the fridge for about 25 minutes to chill. Once you can touch your finger to the buttercream and none of it comes off, it's ready for the final ice, so I just added another layer of my buttercream all around the cake and then smoothed it down as best I could with my spatula. I have some fondant here that I dyed with ivory food coloring gel from Wilton, and I'm rolling that out on my cornstarch surface to about an 1/8 of an inch thick. I picked that up with my fondant roller and then draped it over my cake, and quickly using my hands and my fondant smoother, I pushed all the air out from the top of the cake and then just worked my way down the sides until I reached the bottom. I went over the whole thing one more time with my fondant smoother and then trimmed away the excess using a knife. To make the features on my cake, I'm just going to start deconstructing my template a bit, starting with cutting those ears off. And then I'm lining up the template on the cake and using the back of a paintbrush. You can use a proper modeling tool if you have one. I'm just marking in where his ear would be meeting his face. I gave those lines a quick rub down with my finger just so you can really differentiate where his cheek would be and then where his ear is. Then, using a balling tool, I'm just going over his inner ear and marking in the lines to make it look more earish. Next, I cut off the hat part of my template and then again just line that up on my cake, and I marked in where that line ends on the top of his face and also where his eyes are going to sit. Then, using my balling tool and my finger, I'm just deepening his eye sockets. Going back to my template, I've cut out one of the eyes, I've cut out some of the hair and the eyebrows. I'm not going to show you too much more of this. I'm sure you get the gist by now. I'm just cutting out the features and then marking them on top of my cake. Using a lighter brown fondant, I'm cutting out the 2 pieces of hair, and then with a darker color, I'm going to cut out his mustache and his eyebrows. Then, going back to my template as a guide, I'm placing those where they're going to sit properly on the cake. marked in where his mouth would be, and just like with the eye sockets, I'm just deepening that with the end of my paintbrush. I added some white fondant into his mouth, and then I'm placing the mustache down, again, just referencing back to my template to make sure it's sitting in the right spot. Added some white into his eye sockets, making sure that they're as flush with the cake as possible, and then they're not completely round because I just made space for his big huge nose, which I will add later. His eyes are blue, so I use some light blue fondant for his iris area and place that down, and then using a fine tip paintbrush and some light blue food coloring gel, I just lined the outside of the eyes and then dragged that color in. I placed some pieces of black down for his pupil and then added a little white ball of fondant at the very top of that for the catch light. Again, I just used the template as a guide when I was cutting out these shapes. For his nose, I have a ball of that same ivory colored fondant, and I just matched up the shape to the bit of my template. For his cap, I rolled out some red fondant and then draped that over the top of his head, just loosely lining it up where I marked in that line where the cap stops and his face begins. And then I trimmed away the sides and just carefully cut through that red fondant, just being careful not to cut deep down into the ivory color. To make the rim of his cap, I rolled out a snake of my red fondant and just curled it around that little piece of my template to make sure it was the right length. And then using my little fondant roller, I'm just putting it on top of my fondant and then rolling it down, trying to create somewhat of a point at the top there. And then I'm just trimming away so that it'll shape nicely with my template. Then I just added that on top. I didn't need to use any water to make it stick, but you could if you find that it's shaken loose a little. The template I used did not have the eyes on it, so I just printed those off from a different template that I had found. And I will link that one below as well. So I'm starting out with some black fondant that I rolled out, and I'm just cutting out the very outer shape of the eye. Next, I rolled out some white and then traced around the actual eyeball part. And then with the smallest circle, I just cut out the red for the iris. I added the white circles on top of the black, and you can see I'm adding on the painted iris. I did this very similar to Mario's. I used red food coloring to mark the outside of the eye and drag that into the center, and then I lined the very top with a little bit of black. I mixed some red food coloring with some white for that semi-circled shape because the picture made it look like his eyes were really shining, and then I added the black pupil and the little white catchlight. I added my red eyes to the top of the cap, just keeping that in place with a little bit of shortening. You could use water or piping gel. And this was the final result, guys. I'm so sorry that some of this video was a little bit blurry. I will do my best to pay better attention in the future. I thought I was groovy with the focus, but obviously I was wrong. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as you could, and I will see you in the next one.